there's a lot of places where you could be the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
You've chosen consistently to stay here and hang in. So can you just talk about, number one, what's been so attractive about this particular season and your willingness to make that choice? And then as you map out your own future goals, what's kind of the math that you've done in your head in terms of progressing?
Yeah, I mean, I think like I've been dealt kind of a strange hand when it comes to my career so far in college football. But like I've said before, like I have a tremendous commitment to the school and a lot of love for this university, institution, and program. And I see myself being able to accomplish what I set out when I got here, although it may take a different path than I had originally thought. In terms of this season, I think just being in that room with Coach Riley and Coach Kingsbury is like certainly very attractive. When you talk about two of the most respected guys there are in the business in terms of coaching quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks, you talk about the pedigree of the guys that they've been able to coach, and I think also sharing, competing in the room with Caleb's a huge advantage as well. I mean, if I'm going to go at it with anyone in every single practice, I'd love it for it to be the Heisman Trophy winner. So, yeah, I think it's kind of where I'm at.
Have you looked at the schedule this year and, said, you know what, these are games that I should be playing in, and will there be any disappointment if you're not in those games?
I mean, obviously, I want to play every single week. I don't think, it's fair to any team to
I didn't mention any team by name.
Right, no, for sure. I'm just saying, it's not fair to, look at a team and think they might be a lesser opponent and I'm more likely to play more. I think, I prepare every single week I'm going to be playing in a game, my number may be called upon, and I think, I'm just as ready, no matter week 1, week 7, whatever it is. So.
Lincoln did say that one of his regrets was not getting you in more last year. So, regardless of opponents or anything like that, have you gotten the impression that they want to be a little more proactive about getting you time this year, both for the value of this season, but also for future seasons?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, not that practice experience isn't super valuable, because it is, especially, with new receivers, with new install and that kind of stuff, but game experience is invaluable, and I think you really saw that with Caleb, how he was able to develop through his game experience over last year. So that's definitely something that I've spoken to Coach Riley about and that we've kind of talked about in terms of my own development going forward.
How much of your time do you get to dedicate to football this year with pretty much your academics behind you now?
I mean, I don't know what behind me.
Well, are you working on your PhD now?
No. Yeah, I mean, school is definitely more focused for me now, which would be nice. Obviously, kind of front-loaded that in a large way, so it'll be really cool to kind of put that on the back burner, so to speak, and really focus on ball. So I'm excited for that.
What was your academic workload to keep that pace?
It was pretty intense, honestly. I mean, you talk about with COVID and stuff, I was able to do more than I might have been able to do otherwise. And then early enrolling obviously gave me a chance, and I was done with high school early, so I took some junior college classes and stuff like that. But it was definitely still a super heavy load.
Last season, how many classes were you taking?
I took 16 units the last year, but I wrote a thesis that counted for both semesters, so that helped. And there was a bunch of stuff that went into it, but
wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely a great experience, something I'm super grateful for, also something I'm glad to be done with.
So, agility was kind of the talking point for you in spring. I feel like you kind of made strides there. Is there anything else in this fall camp that you're kind of looking at honing in on to start your game?
Yeah, I mean, one thing Coach Riley and Coach Kingsbury and I have talked about is just we really honed in on footwork and getting away from the line as soon as possible, especially on quick game stuff. Sometimes I was playing too far up in the pocket, I felt like. And I was kind of pointing emphasis throughout this offseason, and obviously agility, getting stronger, faster, everything like that. And you're playing the quarterback position, there's no part of your game that you can let take a dip at any point. So I'd like to think you're constantly working on everything that you can.
Caleb as a Heisman now, he's already considered the number 1 pick in the next draft. What's different in him going into this year, just in the way he operates, the way he goes about things?
Yeah, I mean, he was a great player last year too, obviously. But I think he just he is in he's in complete command. He has that pedigree kind of under his belt, which maybe he didn't. I mean, he had, everyone knew he was a great player, but I think it's almost set in stone now And I think like he has the respect of everyone on the team, and obviously like operates the offense with complete command, and he's a great leader for our team.
Everybody talks about kind of the game slowing down
Yeah.
as you play, but I'm kind of curious, how much faster are the answers maybe coming to you pre-snap and post-snap in your second year, for the first time having a second
Yeah.
year in the same offense?
I don't know if it's like you're coming to answers faster. I think you're just asking different questions. So like, I mean, without giving too much information about Coach Riley's playbook, I just think your thought process is in a different place, and like as you begin to understand more information, you can take in more things at the line, and you can think about different things, and like you know where to check, you know where the line's going, like you know what runs are good against what fronts and that kind of stuff. So it's not like, okay, like this is a run to the right. It's like, okay, like I have these linemen pulling, this is good into this pressure. Like if I get weak side rotation, I'm checking this. Like there's different questions that you're then asking. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. And like one thing that really helped me is like game planning each and every week, because you have to learn a new game plan obviously every week, and it's much more in depth than it was my true plan. So it wasn't just throw it to different guys. So yeah, I would say that's the biggest difference.
Is it an offense where the sequencing is not like responding to what happens in the game, in terms of like you're putting things in the first quarter that may pay off later in the fourth quarter, or things that might set opponents up? Like, how much of that is put into the plans?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with our offense because teams could play something all year and then come out against us and play something completely different. Just because of like how we can attack defenses. So I think we go into every week having a plan in terms of this is what we expect them to do, but we're also prepared if they do this, this, and this. And I think like Coach Riley's really, really special in planning for that and having like a plan no matter what we get.
For you, how much of this season practice is competing for a job for next year, kind of positioning yourself?
Sorry, say it again?
How much of this year is going to be for you, kind of positioning yourself for next year and almost competing for the 2024 job?
Yeah, I mean, I think like my biggest focus right now is helping us win games. I mean, obviously, like I want to put myself in the best possible position I can to succeed, and I think in putting our team in the best possible position to win, I'll do that for myself. So yeah, I mean, I've really just kind of been investing time with the younger guys, making sure they're caught up to speed, and kind of getting everything I can out of my own game, and I'm very excited for what the future holds and what that looks like.
Travis occupied a pretty special leadership spot on last year's team. We hear a lot about Dedich. I'm just curious, have any contenders emerged from your point of view who have kind of maybe separated themselves in terms of leadership at this point?
That's a good question. I think Austin is someone that's not talked about a lot, but like deserves to be. I think him coming back was a huge decision, because if you talked to him last year, I didn't really think he was going to come back, but him coming back, and he was a huge leader last year. I think it was somewhat overshadowed because Travis got so much ink for it. But like playing that running back position, those dudes take punishment like on every play, and like that dude's got the heart of a freaking warrior, and like I think everyone on that team runs to the wall for that dude, and like he has every single guy in that locker room's respect. He certainly has my respect. I love that dude, so I think he's definitely someone that's stood out.
About the freshmen coming in, Deuce Robinson, Jacoby Lane, what they showing?
Yeah, I mean, they're both like 6'8", which helps. But no, they're great dudes. Guys who came in and off the bat really, really wanted to learn, really wanted to get in their playbook and be the best version of themselves, which I think is like a really great time, because you never know how things are going to shake out when guys are so highly recruited. They can come in kind of one of two ways, like probably as we've all seen. So yeah, I have a ton of respect for those guys. They've come in with the absolute right attitude, ready to work and ready to prove themselves and contribute in a big way this year.
Lincoln Riley has talked about what he looks for in a quarterback, it has to be the team leader, be a team captain. How do you take on that leadership role, knowing that you're 1B, so to speak?
Yeah. That's a good question too. I think the biggest thing that I've talked about with Lincoln is like, if you want to be the starter, you can't wait till you're the starter to act like you're the starter. And so that's one thing I've really tried to work on this summer, is like lead your group at all times like you're the starter no matter what, and I think that's really helped me take the next step in becoming a leader for this team.
So you have no problem stepping up and maybe contradicting what Caleb Williams might say?
I mean, me and Caleb tend to work pretty well together. He calls a protection run, I'm gonna tell him, but like that's just our relationship. Like we have a very positive working relationship, and like I have a ton of respect for that dude.
Sure.
So like it's never like, hey, you got this wrong. It's hey, like we're working collaboratively for a common goal. Like if we're getting this right together, like if we're getting this right, we're getting it right together.
Right.
So I think it's more from that sense. If we're having that kind of discussion, it's never like, hey, idiot, like you got this wrong.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I tend to like agree on a lot of things with most of the other leaders on the team. But if that time came where we had a disagreement, I wouldn't shy away from speaking my mind.
Have you noticed that difference in Caleb? Recently he talked about how, you might not like him during the season because he's going to hold everybody to a higher standard, but everybody will be happy when you're 1-0 15 times down the road and holding up the trophy. Have you noticed that difference in him where he's holding himself as well as everybody else to a higher standard?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he's definitely taken strides throughout this offseason as being more vocal, and I think the team like feels and appreciates that. And at the end of the day, like, I mean, for me, like I feel like I thrive and appreciate that environment because, like, I mean, we're the same way in that sense, So we don't really butt heads in that sense at all, but I think it's good for the team and, like, it's good for Caleb and our room as a whole to kind of express that message to the entire team.
So, as usual, the landscape of college football in terms of NIL and collectives and everything continues to change, continues to evolve. I think this week it came out that there were a group of collectives actually trying to open a dialogue about revenue sharing with the players. I'm just curious, like a year later, because we talked about this like a year ago, but where do you realistically see things heading, and where do you ideally see things heading?
I don't know if I'm brave enough to answer this question. Yeah, I mean, everyone kind of like, there's stories you hear and everyone's like, oh, it's the Wild West and there's crazy stuff happening, and I can't make any like logical prediction in terms of where this is heading. I mean, I know there's that suit to make us employees of the university. I don't know how that would shake out, or how that would like what those repercussions would be, like not only in the state of California but in other schools we play against. I mean, look, there were guys like super successful college athletes that made no money at all, and so like to be in the position where we are right now, like obviously, like, are there issues with NIL? Yes, of course there are. It's like brand new. There's not a lot of regulation. There's not a lot of people that understand the landscape completely. But at the end of the day, like, we're receiving compensation that we wouldn't have 3-4 years ago. So I think that's a positive thing, and it's a step in the right direction.
Do you get players from other teams across the country reaching out and asking what it's like out here with the NIL compared to maybe what's going on in other parts of the country?
Yeah, I mean, like, everyone's always like, oh, these schools in the South are throwing out ridiculous amounts of money. I don't know what's true and what's not true. I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, if NIL is your main concern, like, this is not the school for you. Like, if you want to become the best version of yourself as a football player and as a student athlete, and you want to win games, like, come here. But, like, if you just want to sign a check for being a highly recruited high school player, like, it's probably isn't a place for you.
Is Caleb kind of showing how that can be done both on the field and off the field?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's obviously done a tremendous job balancing those two things. He's obviously like very successful in both respects. So I think he's somewhat of a unique case, and that like not many people can handle those kind of responsibilities both in here and off the field. But I mean, he's done a tremendous job and has shown that it's possible. So whether that's for everyone, I can't say, but he's definitely done a great job.
What was the quarterback room just